Hi, my name is Naima. I'm going to perform two pieces today. One's called Shade and one's called When Will You Leave? Yeah? Shade. Dark as the midnight hour, bright as the morning sun. But under moonlight, would you look at me the same? Divided into tribes. The closest hue to Willy were tended to more, is darkness always deemed as unworthy. The world drowned with white paint. If I were to say this in French, would you pay more attention? Would you seek out who owns this voice? Keep your head up. Don't let Lynch taint your eyes. His ways set us back 100 years. For you and I are more equal than your eyes could ever explain. Ears drowning in ignorance, I thank my mother for covering my eyes. It be your own kind pulling you into the storm, whirling your mind into obliviousness, sprinkles of doubt and lightning of arrogance. Ask yourself, did God create us to divide ourselves into who? I ask myself this question timelessly. The world's constant desire is our answers. Black daffodil, rich in pigment, caressed by the sun, ripped from its roots. Petals plucked, one by one, the sun rises, the sun sets. The petals wrinkle up, but the pigment remains. Meaningful exteriors grasp so tight, a flower that blossoms on its own. Guides its own rising, but often trampled on, needs no permission. Its beauty is not only in the hue, but its inner being. And this is my second piece called When Will You Leave? By my side since I opened my eyes, keen at your departure, struck with grief when you leave. Comfort that I don't need, but always seek. Why is that? Don't answer it. I already know. Laughter and tears is all I've gifted you. You've never taken the grief with you, only laughter. Is it because you know the end is near?
Hi, my name is Ayuni Hassan, and I'm taking part of Cade Somali Festival and at Oxford House. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about my work that you can see on the screen. And if you go on to the next page, so what I do is I take a previous picture that for me to create something, I kind of have to kind of connect with it. And when I look at something, it's kind of more of like emotion based. So for example, this one here, when I saw three black guys, I was like, you know what, it's kind of a bit powerful, and it seems like kind of like, it reminds me of like brotherhood, and I'm kind of into galactic things, and I was like, you know what, let me just create something. And then so then you can see the after part, which is the where they kind of like coming out from the phone, and then just bit of colors is dripping down, and you have the planet on the side and bit of galactic going on. And if I take to the next one, part 2, and this is Halima Aden, the Somali model from America. So even with her as well, so I was like, you know what, let me create something different and something unique and big galactic. Like I said, I always love that. So yeah, and so that's why I did add a bit of start to it. And I wouldn't say it's something that it comes to me straight away. Like for example, if I'm on the bus or at work, it all depends on my mood. And when I get into it, I get a lot of ideas, and that's when I kind of like start creating things, and it reminds me a little bit of like Star Wars, Star Trek, and then that's what I kind of got the image from, and then the idea that I was like, you know, let me just recreate her, give her that galactic look and feeling to it. Next. And this one here, I remember I did this a couple months ago, and when I looked at this picture, I just went on Google randomly, and I was just looking through pictures and things like that, and that's how I get my inspiration from. And when I just looked at this first picture there, and I was just like, you know what, there's something about his eyes, it talks in volumes. And I was like, in that sense, it kind of reminded me a bit of loneliness and hope, and it's like kind of trying to belong somewhere. So and from there, that's why I kind of got the idea, and I recreated something. So yeah, bit of artistic, I'm guessing. So yeah, next. So this one here about this little boy, it's kind of like, it felt a bit more of like a sorrow, sadness, and at the same time there's a bit of passion within him, but he can't really express himself. and hence why I redid it, where you have like a bit of fire and a bit of stars and galactic, where he tries to show his emotion but he does it in a different way, and that's how I was seeing things in that sense. There you go. So with this one here, she kind of reminded me a bit of like Cleopatra, a bit of Pharaoh and a bit of like the Pharaoh time. And I was like, you know what, let me just put a bit of color to it and lightning and things like that. And it's just, and the reason why I'm doing a lot of things with the reason why I'm recreating things is due to the fact of, it's just when you have some form of idea or imagination in your head, you just want to kind of like bring it out, and it's kind of like through that is how I kind of like explain the journey, if that makes sense. Like let that picture itself like tell you a story, and when you look at it and you can feel something towards to it, if that makes sense. It's how you interpret it yourself and what you can read it from yourself, because at the end of the day, whatever I create is for you to read it in your own kind of way and for you to feel it in a different way, however you want to feel it and however you want to see it. And it's not about just putting colors and things, it's just more of a giving a story, and let that just be a part of you, if that makes sense. And with this one here, same thing. So this picture with this editing one is also like moving image as well, where she's kind of like she's walking to somewhere, but at the same time there's a journey. She's come from a struggle, and she has that passion, and she's just heading towards to something, but at the same time she kind of stopping halfway, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like, how can I explain it? It's in a sense of where what you go through in your life, and everything is not always like happy and colorful. There's always a struggle that we all go through, and in that sense, for me, it tells a story where she probably came from a hardship, but she never stops and she keeps moving forward. And hence why you can see the fire and the rain, and so it's kind of like a catastrophe that's happening or things like that. So yeah, so next, so this one here, I saw this image on Instagram on someone's page, and when I looked at it on the first one there, I thought it was beautiful, but at the same time, the way the boy looks back, it feels like there's more to it. And in that sense, I wanted to create something different, where they're in a world where it's been deserted and abandoned, and there's just fire, and then it's just basically, and then you can see the elephant in front of them as well. So I don't know what it is, but is what I felt and is what I created, depending on how my emotion was at that day particularly. So when you look at it yourself, you could probably think like there could be something to it as well. Next, and this one is the edit I've done, and I didn't put the original to it, but with these ones here, it was just, I don't know, it's just like I always say, it all comes down to the emotions and the feelings and what the ideas that I get and the creativity, depending on what I see on them. Because when I look at them, their eyes itself and their face expression tells me plenty of stories, and through that I recreate in a sense of, for example, with the first one here, she looks joyful in a sense, but at the same time she is mysterious going on. But then there's a bit of hint of color, and hence why I pull different colors to it as well, just to kind of like brighten up and just give her that warm feeling to it. And the second one is where she looked unique, if that makes sense, but at the same time very fearless as well, and hence why like she looked like a warrior, if that makes sense. So that's why I put the planet and the what do you call it, the stars and everything, and the symbols at the back that's going on. So even if you play it, you can see the moving parts as well on the first one, and even on the second one. Go back. So yeah, so you can see the shooting stars and the meteor shower that is floating on planet Earth and things like that, and then the what do you call it, the light at the back that is kind of like glistering and that. So yeah, so and the second one is Maya Jama, that done on her. There was a picture of her on Vogue, which was like plain background and then just her wearing her dress, but just the way she was posing, it kind of told me a story where, like, I wouldn't say she wants to belong, but at the same time, it's just she wanted more out of herself, but at the same time it looked like she was a little bit lost. So hence why I put a castle at the background, and then the water goes along with her dress, and then on her dress she has stars and moons. Hence why where I put the stars on top of her. So if you click on the clip, you can see that it's moving. So we can see the cloud and then move it onto the side of it, and then you see the stars on her right side, and then the water is just floating, and it gives you that mysterious and at the same time the kind of like a fantasy where you see on the movies and things like that, like sci-fi. And with this boy here, with him was this gentleman. It was a picture of him just playing background and him just looking at the camera, and it felt like there was more to him than what is being shown, and I felt like he needed a story to be told, and hence why I created where I put different colors going on, and I put a skull on his face where it covers one side, and through that it's more of like he's waiting for death, if that makes sense, but then at the same time he's just staring on a plain picture, if that makes sense, or plain blank camera or things like that. So, and then I put like a little bit of there's a building on his chest, on his suit, which I turned upside down, and then I faded it, and it gives you that kind of like after effect, if that makes sense, where it kind of like shines through, but then it disappears slowly depending how close it gets in that sense. And the first one here was from the Somali Bridal. There was a picture of this lady, beautiful lady, where she was showing off the accessories and the dira and that, and with her, like, she looks stunning, to be honest. Like, just looking at her, there's like mystery going on, and at the same time it's the beauty as well. And I feel like it wasn't being told as much as it should, so I gave her the lightning going on, the bit of gold effect as well. And then if you play it, and then you can see that, not the first one, play the first one, yeah, so you can see that there's lightning that's moving around, and then it's kind of like, it's like, it's almost like Alice Wonderland, if that makes sense. So yeah, it has that little mystery to it, and then the excitement, and at the same time the curiosity as well, where she wants to explore, where she gives off that facial expression. Hence why I added a lot of effects to it. And the thing is, sometimes when you look at something, you might think there's only one thing that's happening in the background, but there's multiple layers upon layers that you might not notice. But the more you pay attention to it, you start seeing a glimpse of each effect and each picture that is there, basically. And the second one here is of a lady from South Africa. She won the Miss World contest, and with her it was more of like, because what she was wearing and the way she was posing, I felt like it gave me that sci-fi feeling to it, the Star Wars feeling. So I wanted to create an empress that is basically, what do you call her, that she's basically the queen of a planet, if that makes sense, and she's in control of things. And hence why you see there's a time on her chest, and there's a timer on her arms as well that goes all the way up to her shoulder, which is basically the keeper of time. And if you click on it, you can see the background is, everything is moving around, and even the time as well. Play it, the second one. We're playing the second image. Okay, so if you play that, then you can see everything else is moving around in her background, basically, and then you have the lightning, and then you have that, the, what do you call it, her eyes is moving in a sense of like, where it's a sun, basically. And for her, to me, she's the, what do you call it, the keeper of time, the empress of time, if that makes sense. So yeah, so me, I started this whole thing. I've always been into art from young age, and even do painting as well, abstract painting, but I kind of mainly focus on my graphic arts and that. And the reason why I started is, it's not more of I started, it's more of I used to do it as a hobby, but I would never share it, and it was something just for me. And it was my little secret, if that makes sense, because sometimes everyone knows everything about you, but there's this thing that I just wanted to keep it to myself. But when I noticed that, I said to myself, why am I not sharing it? Why am I not letting the world see it as well? And if I like it, then I like it, not depending on whoever that might not like it, whatever. So then I think it was 2-3 years ago, I decided to share it. I said, you know what, let me just put it out there, and whatever I'm feeling, maybe someone might feel it too as well, and somehow connect with it and be in their own little world, just the way I am. And when I create these things, it's more of me being by myself and just being in that mood where I just end up creating things where I just put headphones on, listen to music, and let my emotions and feelings just take me through a journey. And that's how I create these things, where it just gives me more ideas and more imagination and more creativity starts coming in. And if someone tells me, oh, please create now in front of them, literally my mind just goes blank. And for me to be able to create something, it's just, I have to be on my own, and just let myself go. And that's how I do things basically. And so yeah, so I hope you guys like it, and don't forget, get your tickets and everything, and make sure you guys are listening into Somali Weeks Festival, and I hope you guys enjoy it as well. So once again, I just want to say thank you. Thank you very much.
So the first poem I'm going to begin with is entitled Nation of Poets, and it begins. My people's pain will never be in vain. The blood through my veins is how their legacy remains. I come from a derelict terrain where poverty and pain remain and never change. From dark days filled with death to war-torn towns with no prospects. A nation separated by colonial lines. People divided by allegiance to tribes. Each tribe with their own pride, so they can never put their differences aside for the betterment of their own people's lives. In the past, this wouldn't pass. People put into a different class simply because of caste. Oh my, how the world has changed so fast. Before the colonization, degradation, humiliation, separation, suffocation and asphyxiation of my sovereign nation, Somalia was the oasis of knowledge and creation. The ancient Egyptians called it the land of Punt, the land of the gods. The ancient Greeks called it the land of Barbaroi. The ancient Romans knew it as Regio Cinemafore. As far back as 2000 BC, the ancient Egyptians used to travel down the Red Sea for frankincense, myrrh, and whatever else they may need. Somalia was a place of wealth indeed. Somali people are nomadic in nature. Known throughout the ages as Greek sea merchants and traders, our history wasn't written in pages, but maintained through oral recitation. A pivotal point in the time of this great nation is when Islam entered the equation. This defining moment in Somali history created a sense of community. All became equal before one God, Allah, through testifying that there is only one God and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his messenger. La ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. Community is unity. And when my people were united, they were immovable and enlightened. Through an understanding of the Holy Quran, they gained strength and built Iman, forging plans to pioneer and prosper for the greater good of the motherland. The next poem is entitled The Injustice of What Just Is, and it begins. What does it mean to be black? In other words, what do you lack? Let's look at the facts. Every word associated with that has a negative connotation attached. Black magic. Magic involving the supposed invocation of evil spirits for evil purpose. Black list. A list of people or things regarded as unacceptable or untrustworthy and should be avoided or excluded. Black bull. Reject a candidate applying to become a member of a private club, typically by means of a secret ballot. Black male. The action treated as a criminal offense of demanding payment or another benefit from someone in return for not revealing, compromising, or damaging information about them. If black is the opposite of white, white being synonymous for purity, innocence, and light, the contrast in the meaning of these words reflect real life. Words determine value of life. What does it mean to be black? And why do we identify with that? Does it mean I'm a melanated man, a African descendant, a Cushitic king? Well, if it did, then I would identify with everything. In order for us to understand where we are, we must look back to where we were. Black history is surrounded by mystery. Perpetuated portraits of indignity exemplify a distorted history, leaving lineage and legacy in the hands of the enemy, degrading the integrity of ancestral memory. The colonizer created a caste system to castrate us from our own land, using our own resources to cripple us with our own hands, creating nations by drawing lines to divide kingdoms and tribes. So understand where the real line should be redefined. First, we must decolonize the mind. We can be sexualized and glamorized before we're demonized and marginalized, vilified and tossed aside, all because we aren't so inclined to climb behind or walk down a narrow line tailored for your kind. The enigma of the so-called nigger is that he is a niggus, a king. To label him anything else is a disastrous thing. Stop and think how labels redefine everything. Wonder why, when someone white willfully commits a horrendous crime, they always seem to have either lost their mind or it wasn't in their nature because it's not of their kind. This is a reflection of a systemic tool of oppression used as a weapon to mask past aggression through acceptance, to keep us confused, idle in thought, but actions consumed. The rhetoric we hear is the words we live by. The words we say shape our life. The world simply isn't black and white. Injustice is not right.
This song is called All for One. It ain't all for one no more. Don't dilly-dally about it. Things are changed now. Hello, rider. Quiet moves in the dark now. Man are shouting, getting peak in the street. How you feel about that? Roll back, do the right thing, do it up, cruddy when it's getting frightening. What you man saying, what you man saying, what shutting in the ends, busting off a shot, don't it get tiring? Don't it get tiring? Don't you man get tired when you hear the siren? Don't you man get what? Don't you man? Bass gun, flame growing bad mother. Like I ain't never heard of another. Bad G, sick G, make you wanna flip G, cry G, YG. I gotta be your OG, long G, wise guy, big guy, smashing up small guys, trying to call my side. She got a deadline, ain't got time for your old rhymes. We wind up in a club at 35, sick guy. All the time that's peak, longing out the week cause it ain't had sleep. Backpack in the winter and in the heat, doing up that street cause it always gotta eat. No way, stay sane, instead of staying safe, focus, stay safe. Long enough the yachts, giving up a free lay. End of the day, man, I gotta get paid. Tracksuit, ayy, hoodie up, ayy, crossbody bag, ayy, hella heartache. Tracksuit, ayy, hoodie up, ayy, crossbody bag, ayy, hella heartache. Sick of being a gangster, done with being hard. Watching all the youngers messing it up from the start. If it was different, I would have been smart. Sick of being a gangster, done with being hard. Watching all the youngers messing it up from the start. And it was different, I would have been smart. It ain't all for one no more. Don't dilly-dally about it. Things have changed now. Hello, right? Quiet moves in the dark now. Man are shouting, getting peak in the street. How you feel about that? Roll back, do the right thing, do it up, cruddy when it's getting frightening. What you man saying, what you man saying. What shotting in the ends, busting off a shot. Don't it get tiring? Don't it get tiring? Don't you man get tired when you hear the siren? Don't you mind get what? Don't you mind get what? Don't you mind get tracksuit, hoodie up, crossbody bag, hella hot, I said tracksuit, hoodie up, crossbody bag, hella hot, Sick of being a gangster, done with being high. Watching all the youngers messing it up from the start. If it was different, I would have been smart. Sick of being a gangster, done with being high. Watching all the youngers messing it up from the start. If it was different, I would have been smart. It ain't all for one no more. Don't dilly-dally about it. Things have changed now. Hello, right? Quiet moves in the dark now. Man are shouting, getting peak in the street. How you feel about that? There was so much pain. I went down and outside to pray. I went down to the river to mourn for your life and was in my veins. I went down. I went down. I went down. I went down. I feel you leaving me. I feel me stay. No, I don't wanna leave, but everything is a mess. I feel you leaving me. I feel me stay. No, I don't wanna leave, but everything is a mess. I'm in the river to wash you away. I'm in the river to wash you away. I'm in the river to wash you away. I feel you leaving me. I feel me stay. No, I don't wanna leave, but everything is a mess. If you heard me crying through the window last night, I am struggling to get out of bed. If you heard me through the window last night, I am struggling I just can't be at peace, and I cannot be at ease when I got so many things running through my head. I just can't be at ease, and I cannot find peace. I got all these things running through my head, and 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 my my head is broken down into pieces, into pieces. My head, my head, my head is broken down into pieces. It feels so lonely without you. It feels so lonely without you. It feels so lonely without you. I'm in the river to wash you away. I'm in the river to wash you away. I'm in the river to wash you away. I feel you leaving me. I feel me stay.
جلل يا سلي أحمد يا المعمار 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 جلل يا سلي بسم الله صلى الله عليه يا لي 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 كنسيب كنسر 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 عليه يا لي كشبحة عليه يا لي كشبحة عليه يا لي كشبحة عليه يا لي كشبحة عليه بسم الله بسم الله صلى الله عليه يا لي 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 كنسي كنسر 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 عليه يا لي كشبحة عليه يا لي كشبحة عليه يا لي كشبحة عليه يا لي كشبحة عليه يا لي حقو 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 حقو.
Hi, I'm Amina Chama. I'm a poet, producer, curator, facilitator. I'm going to read some poems for Somali Week Festival, House at Oxford House. All these poems are from my debut pamphlet, A Warning to the House That Holds Me. The inspiration behind the Durdur poem was mostly about an exhibition that I curated last year. Somali Nimo Tala Dimo was the name of it, and it was in collaboration with Yassine Osman and his exhibition Dear Yayo, which came to London. Part of that exhibition, I was able to book Durdur band to perform in the space, which we curated to look like a traditional Somali living room. And that was really important to me because anytime I go to my mum's house or my grandma's house, even my aunties or any friends who are Somali, like there are certain fixtures in their house that are so important, and the smell was so important to me, and the sounds of it and all the senses. So I was really happy to be able to bring all of that into a space and into an institution that doesn't really cater to Somalis like that. Mogadishu Funk, a history of migration. Durdur first discovered jazz before the war. All saxophones and good vibrations. They say it sounded like the adhan, the call to prayer, all intimate. They say it sounded like a pre-wedding night, both holy and forbidden. Jazz made people electric before most of the country had electricity. For a while, they kept trying to smooth out the creases like the sound was a fabric. Their tendency to make everything flat, but not jazz. Durdur flee, some to Europe, others from states to states, all away from home. Cassette tapes are buried along with bodies they should have never started singing in the first place. All hills are off the floor. All hell breaks loose. The people think the Dajjal has arrived, or Iblis. They see the moon split like the land, Yajuj and Majuj. Isa descending into Damascus, a cloud of smoke, Yawm al-Qiyamah, the day of reckoning. They thought it was Iblis, but it was just Siyad. Durdur are part of the diaspora. Kids and grandkids. Language turns from Af-Somali to Af-English to Af-Dutch and back to Af-Somali, but by choice this time. Ma'awises are ditched for bootcut jeans. Hididaqan for miniskirts and tube tops. Michael and Prince are our uncles now. The moon splits again, but this time it's like a baby opening its eyes to the world. Durdur reunite. After decades and decades of statelessness, they should have never stopped singing it in the first place. All hills are off the floor. All etiquette and shame out the window, an invasion of colours and silk dresses, free mixing and twerking, mourning and celebrating, a gift of head wraps. The song talks of burning ships on Lido and Berbera. Smoke feels like it's at our feet. They sing about sunsets that actually touch us but feel so distant. They sing about genocide. Grandmothers are at the front of the stage. Tonight, they are back in 1980s Mogadishu. These songs are postage stamps commemorating the loss of their country.
Yuwalo, yuwalo, ho, yuwalo. Hey, ho, yuwalo, yuwalo, ho, yuwalo. So sirade, asidado kalel waye. So sirade, asidado kalel waye. Hey, loy wanage, wala ni man helin haloye. Hey, loy wanage, wala ni man helin haloye. Wata yadiye, wala wati samata. Wata yadiye, wala wati samata. Hako, 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 hako. Haye, waka. Ho yuwalo, yuwalo, ho yuwalo. Ho yuwalo, ho yuwalo, ho yuwalo. So sirade, asidado kalel waye. So sirade, asidado kalel waye. Burburanaye, ama bushay uli jirene. Burkabanaye, ama gudumba lagu sataraye. Burburanaye, ama bushay uli jirene. Gagabanaye, ama gudumba lagu sataraye. Loy wanage, wale ni manheli halaye. Hako, 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 hako. Haye, waka. Aruse, nikolaba. Aruse, haye, nikolaba. Aruse, nikolaba. Aruse, haye, nikolaba. Aruse, haye, nikolaba. Aruse, haye, nikolaba. Tubahoy, saadini. Tubahoy, haye, saadini. Tubahoy, saadini. Tubahoy, haye, saadini. Hako, hako. Yo, oi. Aruse, nikolaba. عروسي هيا نيكولابا عروسي عروسي هيا نيكولابا عروسي هيا نيكولابا عروسي عروسي هيا نيكولابا عروسي هيا نيكولابا دبحوا دبحوا وساعدني دبحوا هيا ساعدني دبحوا دبحوا وساعدني دبحوا هيا ساعدني دبحوا دبحوا ساعدني دبحوا هيا ساعدني دبحوا دبحوا عقو دبحوا هيا ساعدني حقو 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 حقو.
My name is Ibrahim Sincere. Firstly, I'd like to thank Cade for allowing me to take part in the summer festival, in which a group of artists from Somalia will be showcasing various different art forms of their choice. So it's a huge honor for me to be invited to take part in that. The piece that I'm going to do today is called Rome. Rome is a piece which starts off in East Africa, in Somalia, starts off telling the journey of my parents and the sacrifice that they had to make, fleeing the civil war in Somalia, going to Kenya, and then from Kenya coming to the UK, where we grew up. And for the most part of my childhood, mine and my siblings' childhood, we grew up on a council estate in London. So I start off telling a story of my parents moving from East Africa to the UK, and then secondly, the story of my siblings growing up in a cold and urban environment in London. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the piece. On the east coast of paradise, lower class scum, old town slum, brown skin beneath the sun, swap a dream for a sacrifice, take the deal and run to the demon's little hut from the wrong side of heaven, where the demon had to come. It was a long 97 and a longer 94. New beginnings in the springtime, summer wipe the floor. For the skinheads in the city, keep a shorty by the door. You mean God save us all? I will never go back to where I came from, but I can never turn my back on where I came from. Winter folds the pleas of open hands. The cold seemed to defeat the hope of man, but at least it's overcrammed. Just keep your soul intact, living a road away from heaven. Turn the people slowly mad, destroy the only one they have. They play and manhunt, their mantra. This world is yours with a handgun. Syringes on the floor, emptied out and abandoned. Mind full of loopholes, going off on tangents. Neighbour caught a case throwing tantrums. Basking in his solitude, nobody understands him. Wishes flew high where the angels never landed. Left a bit of space for the bandits. Black bandanas covered wounds like a bandage. But this mask isn't for me. Tower block a bookshelf, window full of stories. Mum took abuse in a city full of Tories. And inside she was all broke. And the smile was just for show. I can hear it in a tone like Morse code also. This is where the loneliest roam, where I came from. I will never go back to where I came from, but I can never turn my back on where I came from. I'm trying to wrestle with the demons. I can never turn my back on all the struggle in my region, and never go back unless I free him. A man can never take the apple out of Eden, and we never fell into this hell without a reason. Scattered with the gems from the soul you've been seeking. Understanding every path you take can show you secrets, and you'll lose them if you leave it, if you haven't grasped the point. I can't visualize my freedom, but I'll know it when I see it, if I look beyond the noise. And demons sitting in my loins, I can never go back until I offer man a choice. They take no notes and chase coins, paranoid blaze joints, stumble on the street lights, screaming still the same boy. But are you still the same boy? Where you came from, are you still the same boy?
Abalhoy, Yalawa, Yalawa, Abalhoy, Yalawa. Let's get ready. Away, Abalhoy, Yalawa, Abalhoy, Yalawa, Abalhoy,
Human interactions. She hasn't been home for 20 years, hasn't crossed borders or rivers, draws lines between fiction and reality. Airport arrivals grant her more anxiety than departures do. Sometimes to leave is to stay afloat, is to keep your head above water and to never return. Rivers cross themselves over and over. They hold loved ones closest, confuse rubber dinghies, faulty life jackets and newborns. What would God think about your actions? She, the woman, screams to the ocean. The ocean swallows her up and spits out God is an immigration lawyer, doesn't want to hear another tragic story. They, the rivers, work an allegiance to the flag of the deceased. She, the woman, imagines an ocean not in conflict with survival, leaves behind her mother for 20 years, leaves behind the mountains of Sheikh, the golden sand of the Mi, the Mediterranean, builds herself into a bridge, promises to never allow anyone to die under her or to walk over her.